All right, guys, it is a nice day out. It is early in the morning, still pretty cold, but it is race day. We got a track rental going on today with a group of other folks trying to get ready for the race tomorrow. This is all quarter mile stuff. We'll probably be showing times, maybe not today, but probably tomorrow during race day when they're actually displaying the times. We don't want to scare anybody off yet. So let's get loaded up and head to the track. Man, you guys are not gonna believe all this stuff. It's already been one of those mornings, so I just got loaded up and let's see, where do I start? I went to load the tools in my tote of tools that I take to the track, and I was walking by the tote and I threw a screwdriver in there. Not from way up in the air or anything, just, you know, about waist high down into the tote. And it landed perfectly on a can of brake clean and put a hole in it. And then, let's see, the trailer wire plug where it plugs into the bumper of the truck had, I yanked that thing off of there the last time we hauled the car around, and I had to fix it. So I put all the wires in the plug, got in the truck, went to move the trailer, and the trailer is hopping off the ground because the tires are locked up because the trailer brake wire is backwards. Fix that, and got the car up on the trailer and went to put the straps on the car and throw the straps under the car, just kind of, you know, under the back of the car, and the strap went around the axle, the place on the axle where I wrap it. It went around it perfect. All I had to do was put one hook on it because one hook was already in the eye of the strap. It's just been a weird morning already. So we got all that taken care of, and we are now en route to the track. But before we get started, I wanted to explain a few things that you are going to see in this video. Every pass, take note that it looks exactly the same, okay? It looks like I'm playing the same pass over and over and over. The other thing to take note of is when the car shifts into high gear, it goes flat. Has no power. It's just dead. Okay? Pay attention to those things as we go along, and I'll explain what I'm changing as we make more passes in the day. Okay, we are getting ready to look at the second pass, and I wanted to explain a few extra things that you probably see in some of my videos. One of which you will see Chris walk up to the line, and he will put his foot on the ground and move it around and watch the light at the same time, and he'll light up the first bulb with his foot. At that point, he'll drag his foot on the ground and he'll put a mark on the ground. And the reason for that is so that as he moves around, that mark is always still there, and he knows where to put the car in relation to that mark and the light. We do that for a number of reasons. For one, for consistency purposes, that when we stage the car, we don't get the transmission hot, because that is a problem in turbo cars. It adds to the routine to make sure, again, for consistency, to make sure you do the same thing every time. And that the consistency part is paramount when it comes to trying to get everything you can out of a car like this, or out of any, you know, serious effort race car, right? Okay, now for the run itself. On this particular run, the second run, take note when the car leaves the line. Listen really close as it passes the tree. You'll hear it drop a cylinder briefly, and then it comes back up. I don't know what that is. It doesn't really show anything weird in the log, and you know, it's clearly is a problem at this point. And all along I've had suspicions of trouble, but I'll explain that later. Okay, you're going into the third run now, and the only thing that I've really changed, or I say the only thing, the big thing I've changed is that I've cleaned up the fueling down low every pass, because if you'll think back to the last video, I had made some big changes here in the garage on the fueling based on a data log, and for the most part they're working. I only had one little hiccup on the line when the car is coming up on the two-step, so that's definitely an improvement. The other thing is I've put a considerable amount of boost in it up to this point. We started out at 25 pounds of boost on the first run. We went to, I think by the third run, we're at 28 pounds of boost. And that's kind of a small change, but the real change is actually in how long it takes to get to that. And I'm talking somewhere in the neighborhood of a ½ a second increase in the boost ramp. That's big. It doesn't equal a ½ a second in ET, but it does equal, you know, a tenth here or whatever. And more importantly, the more easily visible part is the mile per hour, which doesn't change. Okay, so now we are going to the fourth and final run. And at this point, I'm mildly irritated that the car is not responding to any changes. The air fuel going down the track looks perfect, straight as an arrow, not rich, not lean. I've added timing. I took some timing away. I've changed the launch boost a lot, and it doesn't respond. The car looks the same every run. On the fourth pass, this pass you're about to see, you'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for this track outing, and that is it for Bob for the season. As you see, the oil on the windshield and the water and oil mix on the windshield is the dead giveaway. It is a blown head gasket, or a leaking head gasket, really bad. Now, there's a couple of reasons and a couple of things that I wanted to discuss in regards to that. Is I changed thicknesses of head gaskets when I took the motor apart this last time, or put it together. I went from an 045 to an 062, and I fully believe that that is the entire problem, and I'm going to have to draw this on a piece of paper so you can see the visual representation of what I am talking about. But it is the problem, was the problem, and that's going to get changed again in the off season. So I think that this problem has probably plagued us ever since the car has been back together. So for the last 24, 26 passes, something like that, it's had a little bit of a head gasket problem. And I noticed this early on, that I was making some small changes, and it didn't really show that I did these changes. Now, some of that was during the time when the wastegates were not working right, so I kind of wrote it off. Now that I got the new wastegates on and it controls boost exactly the way that I command it to, now the problem is very obvious. The amount of power between the first run and the fourth run that I've added to the car would be enough for it to flip over backwards and land on the roof. 10 pounds of boost in this car is, should be a half a second change, and it didn't do anything, and I mean literally nothing. The car ran the same. It ran 502 in the 8th, and it went an 800 on the first pass, on the first quarter mile pass, and on the third quarter mile pass it went an 802. But this is with like 7 or 8 pounds more of boost at that point, and it didn't do anything. So that's just going to give you an idea, some food for thought. The best pass of the day was the second pass, 800 at 171 miles an hour in the quarter on 26 pounds of boost. The last pass on 36 pounds of boost, I didn't run the quarter mile. I ran the 8th mile, but it was actually slower in the 8th mile than it did with 26 pounds of boost. So clearly have some problems to address, and it's probably, I know it's the head gaskets. I don't even have to say probably. I know it's the head gaskets leaking. So I'm going to draw a crude caveman picture on this piece of paper so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the old setup right here, and what you're looking at is the stainless steel wiring that's in the block. This represents the groove in the block. This represents the groove in the cylinder head. So what has happened is I had a thin gasket in here before, and it displaced the copper in there just like it was supposed to. Okay, Now I've gone to a thicker gasket, and what happens is, or what I believe to happen is, that it doesn't lock into the groove in the head correctly. So I'm willing to bet that that is a problem. In order for this setup to work better, this groove in the cylinder head needs to be bigger so that this thicker copper gasket has room to displace up into the groove. The new setup is going to be, I think they're called top fuel hoops or rings or something like that. It's a square ring with no gap that goes into a groove in the block, and it sticks up higher out of the block right in this area. And the groove that goes into the cylinder head is much bigger, and the gasket will displace into it much better, something like that. So hopefully that is the solution to the problem. Unfortunately, it's a problem that plagues small block Ford no matter what, because we only have 10 head bolts. They're big head bolts, they're just not strong enough on this kind of cylinder head that has the thinner deck on the outside of the block below the exhaust ports. Okay guys, that is the end of the video. Unfortunately, Bob is down and out for the count for the remainder of the season. So we're going to get started on the winter upgrades. The next video is going to be tearing down the engine and finding out exactly what happened, but we know what that is going to be. It's going to be leaking head gaskets, probably 98.7% sure it's on the passenger side. So, such is life. That's the race cars for you. That's how things work, or at least that's how they work for me lately, it seems. Anyways, thanks everybody for stopping by. I appreciate it. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and all that neat stuff, and we will see you in the next video.